I present my book here and there. So I was at Barnes and Noble and presenting my book there. Here comes a young boy, and I ask, "Oh, how old are you?" He says, 9 years old. And he looks at my book, he looks at me, and he says, "Have you suffered?" So he's 9 years old, and for him, I must have suffered. I ask him, "Have you suffered yourself?" He says, "No. Your story is written for you. It is a story of suffering. It is a traumatic story. It has validity. Those stories have validities. I'm not underestimating the suffering of anyone."
Story warrior. We rise and we lead from the motherland slain. Stories of power, remember the name. Business warrior, voices that shine, African spirit in every line. Lead, inspire, tell your story. Legacy in motion, this is our glory. Story warriors at your word.
So from 1884 to, let's say, 1960, Africa, West Africa, including Cameroon, enters capitalism but through the system of colonialism. So it means what means those large plantations, cocoa plantations, tea plantations, etc., will actually take the place of, the commerce of humans that was there before. And as a consequence, the scale doesn't disappear, because I was saying that the French used some populations actually to do the colonialism for them. And they used the Greeks to do that. The most important instrument of the Greeks was, again, the scale, because they will weigh the cocoa, and that our, grandparents,
cocoa and coffee,
the coffee that they were planting, our parents were not the ones going to the market in New York or wherever to sell, the coffee they were producing. They were bringing it to the Greek, who had only one instrument, the scale, because this, the Greek didn't have an industry, you see. The Greek was buying it, didn't have a factory. The Greek simply had a shop, and that's it. The shop of the Greek was to buy the cocoa and to sell things like, I don't know, plates or small things that have, minimal value. But the most important part of that shop was always the scale. Always the scale, because that is the way through which all of the things that were produced by our grandparents were bought and came into the system of capitalism that then was colonialism. You see, with the scale, we are entering a system of exchange, of transformation of our lives that we actually need to start thinking about. And of course, as a kid, I would not understand that. For me, I had a value, which is the weight of people, and the other value that I had was the money that I was getting from telling them how much they weighed.
Okay, Prof, when did it occur to you that this innocent instrument that you carry around on your head and your shoulders was not as innocent as everybody perceives it to be? Take us to that moment, that pivotal moment, and what did you make of that? Did you see yourself as an agent of the system? How did you interpret yourself from that moment on?
Yes, the thing is that I am a child of my masters, and I became a writer by reading people who wrote. And I wrote my autobiography after having written lots of books, including autobiographies of many people. So I always wondered, what type of autobiography do I want to write? So there are two types of autobiographies that I really loved. When I was growing up, I read Patrice's words many times, and Wole Soyinka's Ake, really many times. Black Boy, Richard Wright, many times. These are the books that, stood out for me. And what they had as principle is that they were written by people who were above 50 somehow. And it is actually Wole Soyinka who articulated it. He said that a good autobiography is written by somebody who is above 50. And it is also Jean-Paul Sartre who said that. And Soyinka added something to it, saying that it has to be the autobiography of a child, and it stops when you are 14, 13. Because beyond that, you start lying. Beyond that, you start lying. And you write, lie to yourself, lie to your friends, lie about your life, etc. But when you write about when you are, beyond, when you are, not, when you're 10, your teens, etc., you don't have to lie. There's no reason for that. Your agency is not composed yet. And you depend on, on the love of your environment, your parents,
to survive.
So now to your question, when you are 50, you start reflecting a lot. You start
Yes.
thinking, you want to understand. You want to understand the complexity of the world in which you
Yes.
grew up.
Expressing
Not
all
only to say, in terms of pride that I've made it. No, simply to understand what it is that was around you. If you take an example, the scale, I can even take the uniform, school uniform I
Yes.
had as a child because I went to an elite school, Lycée Leclerc, CST Ngwakele. So now those uniforms back then were monopolized by Greek. It was a Greek. So we are back into the system of asking, why was it a Greek? I mean, my own mother was a seamstress. So why couldn't she make my own uniform? You
Exactly.
see? And it was a perpetual battle because, of course, she would have made my uniform anytime, but she could not because you had the monopoly of the Greek.
With the monopoly.
Exactly. So, what is there for a monopoly? You have to ask yourself, what's that? And
Ouch.
it was 1980. So, why is it that such a monopoly would still exist? You see, you realize suddenly that we are back into the colonial system of the 40s and 50s
Mhm.
because those Greeks, that Greek specifically, was very old. He was above 80. So, he was an elephant of the past.
Yeah.
These were his last years.
Mhm.
And he still kept the colonial structure going inside the Cameroon of my childhood. But to understand that, I needed to be an adult already.
To,
You
to,
see?
to look back. Ooh, that is so deep. Now, every object I see, I'm going to be a little suspicious of it. I'm serious. I'm already looking around here, like, even on my table here, this mouse, all these things, they're not as innocent as they seem. Seriously,
No,
because
it
you
is. It is.
look at the scale, I could
Yes.
not see the scale at all.
There are a few things. Of course, you start thinking. To write your own autobiography, you have to think a lot. At least I thought a lot. And now, simply a relation. What is the relationship between me and a scale? Why is it that Cameroonians, Africans in general, do not have a scale at home?
Yes.
So we weigh ourselves on the street.
Yep. Or when you
And
go to the doctor.
exactly. Or, when we go to a doctor. Now, most, if not all white people, middle class, etc., have a scale at home.
Yep. Yep.
So,
Yep.
so what
Absolutely.
is the
Next to
relation we
the
have to
next to the
our bodies?
bathroom.
Because our body is displayed on the street,
Mm-hmm.
you see.
Mm-hmm.
And so the scale becomes an instrument of public display of our bodies, right? It is the public sphere. And you suddenly realize that, because of colonialism, because of slavery, black people's, relation to a number has always been a public affair, a public thing. It is outside that you become a number, you know. At home, your home is essentially a place of
Yes.
cooking, of laughter, of
Yes.
love with of your parents. The way
Yes.
I grew up, when my mother will cook, she will sing.
Yep. Yep.
I have
Um,
38 names. They will call me
they
all those
they
beautiful
invite
names.
everybody over to eat.
Exactly. We eat foods from many different places. I actually the taste of everyone there. But it is only on the street that I become a number, you see. And that relationship between a black body and the number hasn't changed at all. It is still a public, affair. So to write those type of things
Mhm.
requires not only an understanding of the whole environment in which you grew
Yeah.
up, but really a clear understanding of
The world
your
out.
love to yourself,
Wow.
knowing that that number is outside.
Hey, is your story working for you? Or it's just sitting there and gathering a lot of dust? Do you know your story is a powerful, invisible asset? Your story is your superpower, provided you know how to tell it. Give me 15 minutes. I will audit your story and make it unforgettable. It will generate buzz, it will generate engagement, and above all, it will create business for you. Give me 15 minutes. I can coach you on how to tell your story in the most captivating way possible. My name is Gideon Fumukwai, the story warrior. I help people like you to tell fascinating stories. So please click below and sign up, and I'll be happy to work with you. Thank you so much.
But you are a different person. Your
Wow.
relation to your own environment is a different one. So you have to build that yourself. You have to restore that back to
That is
what you
very deep.
actually know.
That is deep, much deeper than I thought. So in that case, would you say that Scale Boy, is it a tragedy? Is it a comedy, or is it something in between?
I will say it is something in between in the sense that tragedy is part of what I was narrating, which is of course
Yeah.
the story of slavery. You cannot remove it from African history. The
Yeah.
story of colonialism. I grew up after colonialism, but yet with those remnants of colonialism.
Yeah.
My life was, as a child, was one of happiness, but inside the structure that itself was tragic, and even the coup, the coup of 1984,
Yeah.
you remember it was a coup of northerners against those in the south. So if you look at the division of Africa, you have a threshold of Islam that actually takes the north of Africa, and it has a line. So it was a coup that was, the crossing of one of the oldest lines of African history,
which is an invisible, almost like an invisible line.
An invisible line indeed. So the tragedy is that it is the invisibility of the line of our own history. Because now, when you look even at the triangular slave trade, you realize that it happened, on the southern side of that line.
Yeah,
you see,
and I've not thought about that.
Yeah, so therefore, a coup that is so random in African history, because it was not a successful coup. The coups that one can talk about in African history are the coups that were successful, you see. But that one had the particular quality in terms of description of being a coup that that went, on the line of division between Muslims and Christians, and it involves the deepest history of Africa. So one has to look into the roots of our own history to understand the battles that were actually unfolding on the streets of Yaoundé.
And you saw that in your formative years, because if it was 84, I bet you were still very young. And I also, but I read about it. I was already of age when I could read. And every piece of document my elder brother bought, I read it. I read from Prisoner Without a Crime, up at Moko. I read everything that came up after that. And that's when I started to discover that there were hidden cells all over Cameroon. There was some in there was some, and that's when my eyes started to say, whoa.
Let's say I didn't
unfortunately, most of our people don't read.
Let's say I didn't write it from the point of view of an adult. I used the skills of an adult to understand the complexity of the life in which I was growing up. But what I did was to write how I came to be, therefore the story of the 18th century, of the 19th century, and of course of, colonialism, and with the scale, all those things are easily unpacked. Right. So maybe one day I'm gonna, tap into, later, but I think an honest story, a story that that is related to oneself, honestly has to stop when one is 13 or 14.
No, that I hear that, and that's very powerful. So, Prof, what do you think about who decides the winner? Is it the teller? Is it the listener? Is it the observer? Is it the commenter? Especially in the context of today, and knowing that some people are shy of telling because they think their stories don't matter. Who's going to win in the end?
No, I think it is the reader, and it is the reader. But at the same time, we are readers of our own history. Our own history has been a little bit made very often without our agency, and has been analyzed very often without our agency. And that's why I take the character of that child, because the child rediscovers everything. The child walks through streets, water, as if it is something, marvelous. A small river becomes an ocean. So the child analyzes everything, and through the child we can discover those things anew. So the child is actually the reader of the universe for us. You see, I'm going to take an example. The butterflies. A child is very close to butterflies, and yet Yaoundé, if it had a colonial name, it would be Zenka City, because the person who, the German who set the stage for what would become Yaoundé was a collector of, butterflies. And many of the small animals around Yaoundé carry his name, butterflies, fishes, etc., things like that, flowers. Now, people don't know that because 200 things in Yaoundé, nature, carry his name. So we still have to discover our own environment. And I'm even going to go deeper than that, or, simply, use something that everyone knows. The word Yaoundé. Yaoundé is a German name, you see. So
really?
The accent aigu, Yaoundé means nothing. It is, the real name would have been Ewondo, because it is a German mischaracterization of the ethnic group of the place, which is Ewondo. but the Germans, having heard it, wrongly, wrote Yaoundé. And, the French added simply an accent aigu on it,
Yeah.
and the Cameroonians, kept it. So we say Yaoundé now, but nobody will tell you what it means. It simply means a window. So it is a German name, you see. So
Oh
those
my
type
God.
of things, are a call, for us to start reading our own environment anew, to start understanding that colonialism actually set the stage for a misreading of who we are, and it is our duty to write our own autobiography of childhood and actually
Yes.
tell our stories
Yes.
using the languages that we have.
That is so it's so sublime to me, because it's like, okay, something as significant as that, I also did not know that it was a mispronunciation that
Mhm.
had to live on. And look at our names, for
Wait a
example.
minute. Wait a minute. I'm gonna tell them something.
Okay.
So you discover that I have cleaning ladies. The cleaning lady is not there. So
Okay.
that's why I was saying the infrastructure of middle class life.
And
But
that's all
I hope
good.
you'll edit.
No, we'll edit this. We'll take care of this. I have very good guys that would cut off this. No, no, no worries. So let's resume with this, Prof. There's a great degree of silence for most of our people in diaspora, and sometimes silence can be misinterpreted. If you had to advise Africans and Africans in diaspora on why it is so important that they need to tell the stories of growing up, coming of age, and also tell the stories of living abroad, because in the vacuum of not telling, the world does not completely know us, or how many rivers we've crossed to be here, how many oceans, and how many adaptations, how many challenges we face just to make it successful. And most of our guys are very successful in different areas. But if you don't leave a trail,
Yes,
our
yes.
children will come tomorrow and they don't have any understanding of what we've come through. Can you talk about why they should embrace telling?
I think it depends on how one is raised. I was raised amongst books. Books were my companions, at an early age because my dad was a librarian and I loved reading. I don't know the relation of anyone else to books, but books were really my best friends. I did not have that many friends, and books were actually substitutes that I had. What they taught me is that everything is made, is that you can actually compose everything. Of course, your story has to be written. My own dream was always and remains, to have my own story, ranked amongst the stories that I was reading. Because
Mm,
there is no excuse that I will read the book telling the story of somebody from France, and yet the same bookshop doesn't carry my story.
yes.
And I actually remember when I was growing up, because in Yaoundé we had publishing houses. When I was, 14, 13, I actually finished writing my first book, my first manuscript, and I brought it to a publisher for it to be published.
The
So
poetry
I
book.
understand that a story is your own, and you have the duty really to fill the void because nobody else is going to do it for you. Look,
Yeah.
when I started writing about Yaoundé, everybody was telling me that it has no value. I mean, even here in the United States, if you look at the first reviews of Scaleboy, you will see that many of the writers don't know how to write Yaoundé. And I cannot blame them because Yaoundé, for anyone who is in the USA, is a place they don't have to think about. Why would they? But it is such. It is so because I don't tell the story of Yaoundé. They don't have to think about Bangante because I don't tell the story of Bangante. The moment I do tell that story, they will think about it. They will reflect. They will think. They will realize that place exists, and they will want to know more about it. My own experience is that the more I tell, the more people want to know. And
Yes.
as a consequence, I publish all those books because people want to know more.
So there's greater curiosity about Yaoundé, and your friends want to go visit and all of that. Talk to us
Exactly.
about that, because I believe that if you don't tell, they
Hmm.
don't know. And if
Exactly.
they don't know, there's nothing to strike their curiosity.
Nothing. Nothing. And all my books are about Yaoundé. It is a personal obsession. I started with it, and probably my last book is going to be about Yaoundé as well. It is that it is just an example of what is possible. What I've noticed is that people from Yaoundé are surprised, first of all, that as a Bamileke, I will be
You know
talking about
about it.
Yaoundé so much.
Yeah,
They imagine I should talk about Bangante all along.
yeah,
But
yeah,
I tell them I was born and raised in Yaoundé. This is the city that carries my
yeah.
eternal memory.
Yes,
And it is a city where I actually became the person who I am, and I simply love talking about the places, the hills, the
yeah,
small rivers, the people around, the
yeah,
mixture of languages, the diversity of the place,
yeah,
all that, the songs, the
yeah,
accents, the violence that I went through, and
yeah.
that is what keeps me going. Thinking about it, I know it is the fabric of my happiness, and
Mhm.
the moment I tap into it, I have a beautiful day. It
Yeah,
is my son, really. You see, what I'm saying is that our stories, that is the happy moment we have in our bellies, and that
mhm.
is what we carry
Thank you.
along. And telling it actually is a way of helping other people
Yeah.
discover in their own body,
I'm,
their place of happiness.
yes. No, no, I absolutely agree with you. Every place can be made beautiful, can be rendered beautiful if the teller knows what fragments of that place to tell. I don't necessarily agree with anything about the city, but do I have great memories from there? Yes. Of going to fetch water, standing at the pump, at the like the maybe 20, 30 other kids. Some can speak French, some can speak French. We're all hanging around there. Sometimes we're pushing, we're shoving. Those memories, I cannot escape. They cannot escape from me. I cannot leave them. And this somewhere in Chinga. And it was a happy childhood. Yes, I would probably not even want to visit a place, but
Yeah.
I have those memories, and I love things that I discovered in Meleng, in Minifem, and all
Mhm.
around Long Park,
Mhm.
everywhere. Now, can the place be beautiful one day again? I think it can be made even more powerful one day. It's current dispensation. I'm a little careful about it, but I still hope that someday it would continue to thrive as it used to be innocently back then. But that was an aside. But maybe we could close on this, Prof. There's an African proverb that until the lion learns to tell its story, the tale of the hunt glorifies the hunter.
Mhm.
I take the position that we in diaspora, we're the lion. Why? We've been hunting. We tried to hunt at home. We were hunted. We left. We went somewhere else. We're hunting. We're finding some catch and so on and so forth. But we're still completely silent. Even though we've conquered one or two, three forests, nobody knows about our story because we're still too traumatized or still feeling like we're inadequate. In the meantime, the lion is winning. Who is a lion? I mean, the hunter is winning. Who is a hunter? Our competitors of different cultural backgrounds. They are overly mobile, just like us. They're probably less smart, but they're telling their story. They're the ones that are getting attention from CNN. They're the ones that get attention from everywhere. In the meantime, we are being dispossessed of some of our opportunities. Look at how many African CEOs do we have in Silicon Valley or anywhere. We don't have many. Are we doing very well? Yes. Are we running clinics? Yes. Are we running hospitals? Yes. Are we running academic institutions? Yes. But how many of our people do you see at the top? Very few. So, in a way, I think we're not telling our story enough, and yet we're the lion of the jungle. This is tragic. Why should the lion roar and not cry like a sheep? Meh, meh. Sorry, I had to use this.
No, no, I understand very well. I
Okay.
understand very well. I think the place of happiness is personal. And I am certain if I go back to the Komkana, if I go back to the Komkana of today, it's going to be a place I won't like to be. I won't like to spend even a few minutes. In the reason being, history is not merciful. The story of my childhood is the story of the past, and it is colored through the eyes of melancholy. It's colored through the eyes of love, of memory, and it is also selective because I choose moments of joy. But these are things that carry me along. The day still has to carry a man along who has to earn a living
Mhm.
and who has to struggle, who has to find a place in the world that sometimes is hostile. What keeps me going is the memory of my childhood. It is those moments of happiness where even to my own child, I would say, look, when I was growing up, I did not do this. What I'm doing there is I am telling a story that's probably different than the one that I had.
Yeah.
Because if my child was there, she will probably say, "Look, Dad, it's not exactly what you are saying." So, but yet it is the story that keeps me going because it makes me happy.
Yeah.
So I think it is essential that we tell our stories to ourselves first, because that is the way through which we actually make sure that we survive. And before even making sure that our stories survive, it makes it possible for us to exist in the first place and exist as humans who do not go down, as humans who conquer. And it is the engine of our lives.
Thank you. That's a new fragment there that no one has ever used that. So the stories are the engines of our lives. I thought it was just a Trojan horses. So, Prof, I like us to end on this. I got a couple of items here. You want to do a 60-second quick story tell on one or two of these 60-second story tell. So we got this calabash. Unfortunately, it's not the one from the motherland. You see all kinds
Yes,
of.
that one is palm wine. That one is palm wine. You see, it is my grandfather. It is Bangante's village. I used to go there during the holidays, and my grandfather was, they will pass, on the street and sell it, and I will stop. My own background is a little bit middle class because my grandfather was a teacher, and so he understood the value of a degree, and he was educated as we are now, but he was a teacher for during colonial times. So he wasn't a great drinker of palm wine, I can tell you that. But what is clear is that when I was in the village, I always saw people passing in front of our yard selling palm wine. So, and when we'll go to the fields with grandma, will obviously see many of them selling. I did consume palm wine later, but not with my own grandparents next to me. They will not allow me to even pass.
Wow, wow. No, I had more than my fair share of that even before I was a teenager. My mom had a cup like this, multiple of this. It was so well oiled,
Yes,
but
yes,
if
yes,
there are 5 children in the house, all
yes,
of us have to sip.
yes,
Otherwise, they
yes.
sip all around. And
Yeah.
that's just the order of the day. And then
Mhm.
if they're gonna invite mom again and give a little bit, then she'll pass it around again to all the children.
Yes,
Me,
yes,
my
yes,
cousins, everybody sip from there. There was nobody wiping. No, no, no.
yes,
Everybody just
yes,
sip from
yes.
there, and that was the order of the day. And those memories, especially for my mom, who was not able to read, not able to write her name, but was, I think, a philosopher in her own right. She was thoughtful. She knew how to orchestrate things, how to encourage me with education. And that story, I shared it in my first book, Facing Adversity with Audacity. But I don't think I was ripe to write that book. I need to rewrite it now. Because I wrote it before I was 50, so I need to write it now that I'm
Ah,
over 50. So, Prof, thank you so much for your time. Where can we find copies of Scale Boy? Because this is more than just a skill. It's
yes, yes. The book is available everywhere on Amazon and on all platforms because Farashos and Giro is a major publisher, so you can have it Kindle and all that. So you have it there.
How about from your own website? Can we
Yeah.
autograph? If somebody, let's say someone is teaching a class, I know friends who are professors, want to teach a class, they want to have autograph copies so that they can brag to their students that,
Sure,
look
sure.
at, it's my fellow countryman who is high up on the plum tree. You wrote another book on plum, and the plum is ripe, he harvested, threw it down. So if somebody wants to have autograph copies, where should they get them from?
Well, they can contact me. You go on my website. My address is there. Send me an email, and that one is solved.
Okay. And what's your website? It's
It is Nganang.com.
Nganang.com. So please, please, please go to Nganang.com to learn about Scale Boy, learn about When the Plum is Ripe, and all the other books that you have been putting out there. Some of them have won awards, and you're continuing to stay so nimble and so agile with your pen. Thank you so much, Prof. And may God continue to bless you. If you're new to this channel, please subscribe, follow Prof's work, and keep telling your story because your story is your superpower. Thank you so much for watching.